This video is sponsored by you and your wonderful support on Patreon. Help me continue to make more videos and get access to exclusive stuff by heading to patreon.com/writingongames. Thanks so much for your support, and now on with the show. The Hitman series has seen a number of business decisions made along its over 2 decades-long history that have seen audience reactions range from a near constant fear regarding its future to outright confusion directed squarely at those holding the reins. Breaking up the World of Assassination trilogy into episodic chunks, maintaining a completely pointless always-online experience despite the fact it made said trilogy markedly worse in all sorts of novel ways, taking a series known for the freedom it afforded players and how they approached objectives, and morphing it into a much more linear experience as found in Absolution. But perhaps most confusing is the idea that someone would look at that game, see the many fans decry its adherence to more conventional action game tropes of the time, lamenting the resulting restriction in approach, and saying, you know what this series needs? A board game adaptation, and what's more, let's release it on mobile, just so we can ensure that no fan is left happy. But like the episodic structure of 2016's game really emphasised the joy of replayability in the World of Assassination trilogy at large, sometimes there is indeed method to some of that madness. And similarly, the skepticism that surrounded 2014's Hitman Go largely subsided as soon as people got their hands on it. Not simply because it turned out to be a fun puzzle game in its own right, although it absolutely did, but because to this day it manages to capture everything that makes Hitman the unique curio of a series that it is. I mean, just look at this aesthetic design. The perfectly crafted little dioramas, the pristine architecture, the delicately organised topiary that surrounds it, the pastel glow it's all baked in. It's all so clean, so stark, in a way that immediately brings to mind the refined elegance of the high society settings 47 finds himself navigating in more traditional series entries, the sleek efficiency with which he works. His character design is so genuinely iconic that even without facial features on a board of similarly featureless pieces, you know exactly where 47 is at any given time and what he's capable of. Of course, this is the most surface level indicator that you're in for an experience that captures the essence of Hitman, but what's most impressive about Go, as you find navigating the countless grids that comprise its levels, is how this extends to the gameplay. As it turns out, even on a set grid, 47's capability will outshine your expectations. Sure, there's the typical rigidity you might associate with the board game format here, the distinct pathways, the ruthless adherence to the assigned routes of your enemies, and the quickness with which your game is ended should you wind up wandering into one of them. But even for a title that reduces the scope of its namesake quite like Go does, you are afforded a fair amount of flexibility in your approach. Of course, as evidenced by the big retry button constantly taunting you from the corner, there is almost always the possibility you could find yourself boxed into an unwinnable situation, a momentary tap dance around the inevitable. But because the rest of the board only shifts when you decide on where you'll position 47 next, in order to study the board and the multiple systems that might be at play here, you find yourself constantly on the move, having to maneuver around multiple constantly shifting sightlines, jumping between shrubbery and deciding the most efficient moment with which to activate a distraction so its effects draw in as many unwitting guards as possible, although hopefully not the one that will subsequently move into the path you had just cleared. It is very possible for your best laid plans to turn on you just when you think everything is starting to go your way, and like the best situations in Hitman proper, sometimes you get to improvise your way out of said binds. Disguises, distinct weapons with different functions, conveyor belts, guards that face 2 directions simultaneously, guard dogs that track you through a level. It feels like every few boards you're getting introduced to some new mechanic or tool or enemy type that stacks upon the previously established mechanics, that mean by the time you get to the end of the game, the sheer number of variables and rules to consider in any given map can be pretty overwhelming at first. At times, especially later on, such abundance can lead to certain rules not being explained as well as they could be. I mean, I'm still not sure about the specifics of the airport disguise you start out with that allows you to murder some guards but simply move alongside others, but the fact that such a wealth of strategic options is being provided to you in a board game that's actually a phone game is novel enough to make up for such inconsistencies. Do you use the sniper rifle to take out multiple guards on the one target at the same time, or do you instead shoot down the statue over here? It might seem like a wasted opportunity to let all those people go, but maybe they're not actually in your way in the long run, and maybe you've just blocked the path for another unsuspecting guard that might have become more troublesome down the line. Just like regular Hitman encourages you to consider the consequences of any action you might take, where your exits are, how many guards might be in your way, etc., Hitman Go requires you to take your time and think several moves ahead, literally, as thanks to clever puzzle design, the obvious answer is rarely the best. In much the same vein, the game has enough in its toolbox at that point that it can actually throw you mechanical red herrings, placing a pickup on a certain faraway spot on the map's grid, conditioning you to think, at some point in the level I'm going to have to use that, and factoring the possibility into your experimentation and improvisation, making you worry when you realise you're deep into a strategy that somehow doesn't involve that one piece, only for you to reach the end of the level without incident, and you realise the level designers have been playing tricks with you. Of course, you could have gone out of your way to use it if you so wished, but most of the time these tools would offer minor benefits and lock you off from certain objectives in your pursuit of them. Speaking of which, these optional objectives found in each map bolster the already impressive flexibility on show here. I do often find myself wishing that there were more opportunities to figure out an optimal route and tick off both optional objectives at once, with many missions taking the form of completing the board in a certain number of turns, and goals like collect the briefcase usually requiring careful and prolonged manoeuvring of enemies. It is rare that you'll find two such objectives that aren't at direct odds with each other tactically. But I don't know, one of the key tenets of Hitman's design as I see it is the necessity of revisiting older maps with renewed strategy. If you drop someone off a balcony, then you're going to have to wait until the next go-around to drop a chandelier on them too. And with that need to repeat maps in order to wring all the rewards you can from them, it helps that somehow, even in a board game setting, the cold hard murder you're here for is made viscerally satisfying. Indeed, the clack and clatter of conquered pieces is the kind of sound that makes you truly thankful for skilled audio design, finding a way to create the board game equivalent of that instantly recognisable fizz from a silenced pistol, a sound that's delicate but decisive, and only grows more satisfying the more targets you're able to take out at once. Indeed, in a way that perhaps goes against typical stealth game logic, taking people out actually feels really good here. Where extracurricular kills are considered a failing in other games, leaving a mess that might alert others to your presence, here every piece taken, no matter how minor, feels like the core of the level you're on, the reason you're there, with victory over your actual crucial targets being given the added ceremony of slow motion and having their demise soundtracked by Ave Maria. See, even the series' trademark jet black humour is captured here in the form of the set dressing of these dioramas, the peripheral little action figures frozen in time in often compromising positions. This set dressing also pulls double, triple duty in highlighting the raw capability of our protagonist, 47 gets in and out before these dimwits even have a chance to move, while also telling a story without words. 47's targets don't need huge lore dumps here, telling you why they're a key part of Providence or whatever. They are pieces on a board, bigger than the rest of the pieces and requiring the most work to get to, which is incentive enough. But the snapshots of time you find them in, trading organs or sifting through box upon box of highly valuable, questionably sourced art, helps place them in the exact kind of shady upper echelons of society, consistent with the more fully characterized targets in other games, all without a single line of dialogue. And that's perhaps what I love most about Hitman Go. Despite only being made by 11 people as the first project of a new studio, it all just feels so effortless, so confident, like this was the mechanical and aesthetic blueprint regular Hitman would go on to pull from rather than the other way around. And in some ways, that might not actually be too far from the truth. Need I remind you that this released 2 whole years before the World of Assassination trilogy that put the series back on the map. But further, Hitman works so well as a board game because, well, it is a board game of sorts. You carefully analyse the game space and the pieces that populate it, looking for a hole in their clockwork AI patterns, and manoeuvring your pieces in just such a way that you can pick the right moment to pierce it. In other words, for all the talk of how accurately Hitman Go captures the essence of its series, in truth, it's Hitman Go's purity that helps us see more clearly what Hitman actually is to begin with. Thanks so much for watching. This video comes just after my 7-year anniversary of doing this whole YouTube thing, and I cannot thank each and every one of you enough for supporting me on that journey. Be sure to like and subscribe, check out my podcast, and follow me on Twitch if you're so inclined. These videos are made possible by the support of my wonderful patrons, whose names you're seeing on screen now. They've also been getting access to more exclusive content I've been producing. Videos on Teardown, games criticism at large, fully produced scripted videos that feel like a better fit on a smaller platform like Patreon. If you want to help the channel continue and see more content, as well as entirely ad-free uploads, just head to patreon.com/writingongames and pledge only what you feel comfortable with. I am forever thankful for your support in whatever form it takes. Special thanks go to Mark B. Writing, Artyom Vitsyuk, Charles J. Liu, Dan Murray, Alistair Dunn, Vitautis Catharsis, Matthew Bowman, Ben Pace, David Karstens, New Static, Mike G, Tom Webster, Max Cohen, Dana Sikauskis, Christopher Faherty, Nicholas Villeneuve, Nelwyn Palacios, Ruth Knapman, Yogesh Deshpande, Leah Chinello, Captain Knusprik, Bryce Snyder, Lucas, David Björk, Winter, Timothy Jones, Matthew Grover, The Nameless Guy, Urban Cheese, Tommy Carver Chaplin, Dr. Motorcycle, Shardfire, Lynn Browning, Calliope Ranis, Villanurmi, Spike Jones, Dallas Keane, Charlie Kimball, Jordan Midler, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you all so much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you all next time.